Welcome to this very special episode of HOPECAST from Queen's University, Belfast. I'm joined by some very special guests talking about student mental health, well-being and how to look after yourself at university. So Megan, Denise and Emma, welcome to HOPECAST. Thank you for inviting us to Queen's University.
Lovely to have you.
Wasn't that here? So September is a really busy time for new students, returning students and even final year students. Why is it such an important time on campus and university life?
I think definitely before September, when people are coming in, perhaps like Belfast is a new city that they're moving to, we are fed like the university is going to make the best year of your life, and it definitely is in respect that you're going to meet so many new people, making new friendships and just getting familiar with like a new city and lifestyle. But then on the other hand, there's the social, there's the academic pressure as well. So I know for mind your mood and well-being, the importance of letting students know that their journey is completely unique to other people, but there's also a lot of support there as well. That's definitely like the emphasis it sets a good tone for the rest of their academic years.
Yeah, and I think as well too, I mean, it's such an exciting time for students, but also it's one of massive transition for them, which can feel a bit frightening and overwhelming as well too, and their expectation around what's going to happen at university and what it's going to be like as well is something that they're having to deal with, and maybe missing home and maybe moving to a new country altogether. We have a lot of international students as well as a lot of students who come up from local communities rurally then for the first time to be in Belfast. So I think it's just good for them to know that there is lots of support in the university for settling in and then for continuing that, because it's a process that continues. I think that settling in throughout their degree as they move through different phases of it as well.
Yeah, I feel that the common kind of feeling that a lot of first years or even kind of post-grads coming here for the first time is just information overload at the start. You kind of have a lot of talks at the very beginning and it's easy to forget that kind of information because you're trying to take in so much at the same time. From a Students' Union perspective, we'll have so many events on in September, like in terms of freshers that everyone is welcome to, but it's trying to get so many students acquainted with not only the entire university, all the services that are specific to their school, but all of our services that we offer as well. So it's a really short window of time to kind of get people in the door, get them on their feet, and it can just be just a lot to take in from the information perspective as well as just developing themselves, I think.
I think as a new student and a returning student, whatever your background in the university story is, it's almost that pressure in a way, like I'm forming relationships and making friendships, I want to make a good impression, I want to be that A-star student, I want to do all this stuff, and it's really positive, but it's also a big pressure as well that you put on your shoulders that we subconsciously do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of students want to academically really succeed and really excel as well. They want to have kind of the Instagram snaps that show they're having an amazing time and settling into university and making loads of friends, and the pressure comes from all kind of aspects of life at that point as well too. But I think they have to remember as well that it doesn't always run smoothly for whatever reason, but there are all those different supports in place, and we tend to find it is a bit of information overload, as Emma was saying initially, but then through maybe the first semester, as things crop up, they will start to use services and pick up on where they can come to, if they're struggling with accommodation or finances, or they're struggling with their academics. They start to realise who it is that they need to be approaching for support. There is loads of support in the university, so it's just them working out and us making our presence known so they know where to come and who to approach for the right supports at the right times.
And I think as well, a lot of new students, we don't want to see that we've got a problem, we don't want to see that we're struggling with our mental health, but it can be detrimental. But a lot of new students or returning students, they don't want to disclose that they're having mental health problems, might have anxiety, might have depression. They don't want to disclose it because we all want to fit in, don't we? So no one will admit that I've got problems. That can actually stop you getting the help that you need.
Yeah, definitely. I know from a finishing student myself, I definitely struggled to come to terms with my own mental health difficulties, to the point where I let it fester for so long that eventually I did just reach a breaking point, and this happened definitely in first year as well, but also in final year too, when I was very much overwhelmed with that pressure of having to do well. The final year is going to be the big year with a lot of transitions in afterwards. And I was always aware as well of the support that Student Wellbeing do provide, and I did eventually contact them, and just from my own experience I got to the point where I even contemplated dropping out because I just really struggled with my mental health. But the relief that I felt whenever I did reach out and get help was it was so unbelievable. And just even the fact that somebody knew how I was feeling, just that raw feeling as well, was just such a big relief. And in terms of the support that I was provided with Student Wellbeing, I knew I was then eligible to register with the Disability Services. Was given an individual support plan just for some things we put in place for assignments, if I need extra time, some things just weren't going my way. But definitely I think from my own perspective, one thing I wish I had done was just to reach out sooner. So I think for any student who is coming into university, regardless of what stage of their academic career they're at, just to reach out, know there is the support available, because the compassion that I received was it was one of the best things that I've ever done.
And I suppose, as an SC president, you probably hear these stories all the time. Why do you think that is that pressure there for students not to admit that they're struggling?
Yeah, I think it's something that you kind of hear. We would get a lot of kind of student queries through to us about the different problems that they are facing, whether it is financial. We do have an advice service within the Students' Union that will be able to help students in very specific areas, but sometimes you will just get people that are just struggling, whether it is kind of academically, and that does impact them, instead of it being at the point of they need to go through an appeals process or something along those lines. It's just the day-to-day struggle that they do seem to face.
And I think, Denise, as well, having a wellbeing team at Queen's University or any university, it's vital just sparking that conversation, having that, seeking that professional help, because it's great talking to your friends and your family if you're having these problems, but having that plan in place to help you going forward can be vital for students.
It is, and I mean, a lot of our work is very much and will continue to be kind of proactive and around having those conversations and around having a visible presence on campus and campaigns to encourage students to come forward, to encourage students to open up, to make this a university where mental health can be talked about openly, and that where nobody should feel uncomfortable about doing that. And I think even with the Mind Your Mood team as well too, I think for students to see a student-led initiative as well. I mean, these guys have been really active on campus in the last few months, and I think that is lovely as well too, because you will get students coming forward and approaching them. But I think moving forward, we are trying to almost embed mental health awareness into the curriculums and work with the schools to do that more so, just to make it part of the everyday fabric of the university as well too. And some of the faculties have the mental health ambassador schemes as well, which are again a mix of students and staff who've taken on that role, as well as being kind of that key point of contact, and they can start those conversations, signpost students on through to Wellbeing, and we can link them in with whatever additional supports that they need. So students would come to us, they would get referred sometimes into the community mental health service here in Belfast, or we would link with Inspire for psychological therapies, and those are just a couple of the kind of support streams that they can access and should access. But I suppose really moving forward, what we want students to be doing is in much the same way as they would physically work out and look after their physical health, to kind of take that kind of very conscious approach around their mental health and their emotional well-being as well, and to make that part of their everyday routines, that they're always conscious of looking after their emotional well-being.
And it's what you're saying, like being conscious of your mental health, and you can't wear a mask, and it can be life and death. And unfortunately, suicides in universities and in Northern Ireland, it's such an issue, and you can't mask how you're feeling, and it's so important. If you're thinking about suicide or you're having those thoughts, seek help and think somebody's there to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Inspire organisation who do our counselling run a 24/7 helpline as well too, and we would always encourage students to use that, but to never be afraid to come to Wellbeing as well too. Students come for all manner of reasons. We're not afraid to have those conversations. We will actively work with students around safety planning and get them the support that they need as well too. And what can seem like a very bleak point can be turned around very quickly with the right support. And there's always help there, and they should come forward.
I think nobody wants to admit they're struggling because you work so hard to get into university, you work so hard, to get to your final year. I think again social media plays a massive role on I don't want to see like I'm struggling, I work so hard to get it. Why do you think people are quite conscious about wanting to look at having the full university experience, having a great time?
I think even from my perspective, when I was still studying as a student, social media plays a massive part in that. I remember looking at the kind of surface of other people's lives and comparing mine to them, being like, they're obviously having the time of their lives in different universities across the country, and I'm not immediately making friends. You kind of put a lot of pressure on yourself to compare yourself also, I think, just to different TV shows that you watch as well, of like,
this is what university should be like.
Yeah.
I should be feeling that way. I should be like the best time ever, and I'm there really struggling.
Yeah, and I think you do kind of tend to beat yourself up about not immediately clicking into everything, being the best student that you feel that you should be, because it is a completely new environment and you do put that pressure on yourself. I think similar to Megan, I think that at the pressure points in first and third year seem to be the biggest kind of parts that played into my life as well. Whenever it kind of got to the end of third year with all of the final things coming up as well, it's hard to take a step back when you're so far into it, as well, of studying, feeling the pressures to make loads of friends. And I think that something that we're kind of now seeing the repercussions of as well is just the amount of time that students have to spend in isolation. So especially if you were first year coming in during the pandemic when everything was online, it was just really difficult to reach out to different people.
Yeah, that social anxiety is there, isn't it? Like, I don't know how to almost interact with people because I've spent so much time doing remote learning, and these students coming back now, it's like, oh my god, what do I do? And do you see a lot of that, Denise, in Wellbeing?
We do, and I mean, we have third years and this year who literally have had only COVID kind of university experience up to this point, so they maybe have spent the majority of their time doing online and remote learning. They won't have built up those peer relationships and the peer supports in the same way as students would have done outside of COVID or had the opportunity to do so. We continued events throughout COVID. We would run some events called WOW events, which are Wellbeing on weekdays, and again those are kind of safe social spaces for students to come along, and a bit like Mind Your Mood, it's maybe not a very formal workshop or anything like that. We do run those occasionally, but it would be more around giving students a chance to connect and maybe just do something that lifts their mood in that week. So we've had everything from like puppy therapy to donuts and draw to climbing the cave hill in the sunrise, all of those kinds of things, and hopefully more and more of that again as we move past COVID will give students lots of opportunities to start to make those inroads into coming out and being in social situations again, having conversations. We will do some pre-semester work as well too every year, but we need to continue that throughout the year. As I said, students maybe don't realise until Halloween, or even till closer to the end of the first semester, that they maybe haven't made the inroads in that they'd like to maybe building up friendships or connecting with other people. So that is something that we do throughout the year.
And even post-university, Megan, you're going into your masters, but a lot of students who are leaving university, it's that pressure to have that job straight away, to know what you're doing, to know what's next in your life, and it doesn't just end on campus. You take these skills going forward into the future as well, into whatever your path. Maybe it's not having that pressure like, oh, I need to do this when I leave uni, do that when I do uni. It's focusing on you and not worrying about what everyone else is doing and comparing yourself.
Yeah, I think it's really important to realise that your journey is not going to be the same as everybody else's, but that's okay. Like, I'm going to my masters with some of my friends, so I've already started full-time work. But what is really good about Queen's is that up to 2 years after you finish, you can have access to the career service. So if you need interview guidance or maybe look over your CV, like, that is all there. because I think like it's a big transition of leaving university. Perhaps like some students have just gone through 7 years of school straight to university and now they're entering the world of work and they don't know what to do, but that support is always there as well. And I think it's just really important to be so compassionate with yourself as well, that it is a big transition, and just to be able to reach out as well. Again, like what I said earlier, that there's no late time, or there's no late time to be able to reach out.
Yeah, and I think as well too, it's about getting the message across to students that as they learn to access services and problem solve as problems arise, what they're actually doing then is equipping themselves with the tools that are going to see them through the rest of their lives and their onward journey on from university. So it's, you know, being able to access those services and knowing when to isn't a weakness in any shape, means or form. They're essentially equipping themselves with the tools that they'll need moving forward. Learning how to address problems, how to get the right help in place, and how to move on from those as well too. I think it's encouraging from our point of view. I mean, we work closely with disability services as well, and I think there's an encouraging sign from our point of view in that a lot of the students coming forward to register with disability services are doing so for mental health difficulties, and that's a growing number that we're seeing coming through. So that is maybe a very positive sign that the stigma around doing that, or the apprehension around doing that, is starting to reduce as well. And that again is something that we would love to see more of moving forward.
And you're completely right in what you're saying there, because I've got hidden disability myself, and you don't want to be seen as different. You don't want to seen as you're struggling, but hiding it, masking, pretending that I'm okay, and oh yeah, I'm cosing for uni, and it's hiding your potential. But actually accessing support, you can be much better at what you're doing and be the best version of you. But people are scared to say, I've got a disability and I'm struggling and I need help. But it's breaking that stigma and saying physical or hidden disability, I need support at university. And it's so important that everyone accesses that. If you're eligible, say I'm struggling with this, I need some help.
Yeah, and especially I think for people who have things like mental health fluctuates, but so do a lot of other conditions as well too. And I think if somebody's coming to university and they're having a period where they're feeling very well, they maybe think, oh, I'll not bother at this point, I'm great. But it's just to emphasise, too, that it's even if somebody comes along and they get an ISA, like Megan was describing, their individual support plan with their adjustments on it, if they never need it, that's fabulous. But if they do have a decline or a dip in their health, then that's another kind of safety net that is there in terms of support for them. So we would always encourage students, if they're eligible, to come forward and register. Universities, I suppose, at university compared to other levels of education, is probably where there's the biggest amount of support around disability and medical conditions. So certainly, ask as well too, because quite often students aren't sure what conditions will qualify as well too, but literally a lot can fall under that category of support. So come forward and ask if you're not sure whether you've got a condition that would qualify you to. Just ask and we'll be able to let you know.
So wherever you are in your university journey, might be ready to start university, might be in the middle of your journey, it might be towards the end, what advice would you give to students looking to seek support?
Yeah, I think something that I hear from students is just that when they've had those conversations, when they've kind of just gotten to a place where they're comfortable to do it, that they just wish that they'd done it sooner. I think that some students I would speak to when they're in the middle of their final exams or their final year, and they actually do contact the services and realise that they could have had this support for the past 3 years. I think that that's something they just don't realise, the amount of support that is on offer. So something I'd really encourage is to just have the conversation as early as you can. I think that there's always a massive influx in September with new students starting and postgraduate students as well having a slightly different calendar. So I think that just reaching out for that support as early as you can to just better support yourself throughout your studies, to do the best that you can, and make sure that you're keeping yourself well. I think that's just really important, and I'd emphasise that for any student looking for support or feeling that they might need it and just don't really know what they qualify for. Everyone's happy to have that conversation with them.
And you can register with the services at any point too, like throughout the academic career as well. And I think as well, like what's really important is that even when things are going good, it should still be like an ongoing process to look after yourself to prevent it from getting to the stage where it is overwhelming and you don't feel comfortable to be in a place to actually be able to reach out. So it's just to have a lot of compassion for yourself, to know that everybody else is maybe feeling the exact same way as you, and just it is so much better to reach out whenever you can. So just know, even from my own personal experience, again, like I wish I had reached out sooner than whenever I did, but again, like I'm just so glad I just did it, just for people to know how I was feeling, that it was even just like a relief for myself too.